Incredible twist, poor girl returns lost wallet. Mafia boss surprises her with adoption papers. Lucy wiped her brow, sweat mixing with the humidity of a rainy Tuesday afternoon. The diner buzzed with the usual crowd, old-timers swapping tales over cups of coffee and weary truck drivers seeking a momentary solace. She couldn't shake the weight of her responsibilities. The bills piled on the kitchen table at home felt like a noose tightening around her. Despite the endless struggles, she'd been raised to value honesty and hard work above all else. It was a mantra that echoed constantly in her mind, especially now, while cleaning a booth, she found a sleek leather wallet tucked under the seat, an anomaly in her everyday world filled with grease-stained napkins and chipped cups. Curiosity piqued, she opened it to reveal an impressive amount of cash, but as the name Antonino Romano caught her eye, an icy shiver ran through her. Rumors surrounded Antonino like a dark cloud: mob ties, threats, a reputation that sent shivers down the spines of townsfolk. Her stomach churned at the thought of keeping any of that money. Should she do the right thing? The moral dilemma crashed over her like a wave. She envisioned her mother's disappointed face, hollowed from years of their struggles. Each breath became heavier as she contemplated her own salvation against the backdrop of honesty. She hesitated, dripping with indecision. But if Antonino were to know she found his wallet and didn't return it? The consequences were unthinkable. Before we continue, I need to tell you about something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to the system and many people are losing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, click the bell and mark all notifications so you don't miss the next videos. And if you can leave a like, it really helps with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, tell me in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let's continue. As she walked the path to Antonino's mansion, trepidation gnawed at her. The towering structure loomed like a fortress, its intimidating facade casting shadows on her resolve. Gulping down her fear, she knocked. The door opened wider than she expected. Antonino greeted her with a warm smile, disarming in a way that made her uncomfortable. Humor and charm dripped from him like the rain outside. But every flippant comment felt like a mask over something darker. They talked, and for a fleeting moment, she saw wrinkles of vulnerability beneath his bravado, reflections of her own struggles flickering in his eyes. But just as she felt an awful comfort in their conversation, he revealed the shocking twist: adoption papers, a proposal that twisted her heart. He was offering her a life far removed from her own, filled with luxuries and opportunities she'd only dreamt of. But at what cost? Her community's fear of him loomed large. What would they think? The very idea of her family understanding that she might step into Antonino's world horrified her. This connection, charming though it was, came with an undercurrent of dread. Could she really abandon her mother and siblings for the siren call of a wealthy life nestled in crime? Her heart raced as she flashed back to her family, her mother's tired hands, the laughter of her younger siblings. Even standing in Antonino's lavish mansion, surrounded by wealth she could never touch, the thought made her throat tighten. The adoption papers felt like chains wrapped around her desire for a better life. She was poised on the edge of a precipice, caught between hope and betrayal. Just then, her phone buzzed violently in her pocket, a frantic voice crying out desperately on the other end. "Lucy! You need to come home. I can't keep this from you." Lucy's breath hitched, the world as she knew it was at stake. She stood there, the ink barely dry on the adoption papers, facing a choice that could redefine everything. A single look backward, a single step forward, and the tension in her chest tightened as she felt the fabric of her family unraveling. What revelation awaited her? The uncertainty loomed larger than ever, and she knew the answer could shatter her understanding of family and loyalty forever. The air in Antonino's mansion crackled with unexpressed tension as Lucy's pulse raced. Her phone, still buzzing in her pocket, echoed the urgency of the moment. "Is everything all right?" Antonino's voice broke the heavy silence, a slight edge creeping in. His warm demeanor remained, but the shifting shadows of uncertainty cast by her conflicting emotions made his charm fade into something more calculating. I need to go," she stammered, her heart pounding in her ears. The adrenaline surged and her mind raced, replaying the myriad of possibilities that awaited her at home. The idea of abandoning her family, her responsibilities, was intoxicating yet suffocating. "Your family is important, I understand," Antonino said slowly, his eyes narrowing with something that resembled concern. "But consider my offer. I can change everything for you." She took a deep breath, fighting the pull of his words. This was no ordinary choice, it was a crossroads, presenting her with a life that had always seemed unreachable yet now stood temptingly before her. Would pursuing this path mean a life of wealth, freedom, and opportunity, or was it merely a gilded cage? Chaos simmered in her mind as she stepped back, the adoption papers crumpling in her hand like a futile defense. "I can't just leave them," she said, the conviction in her voice sounding brittle even to her own ears. Antonino's smile faltered, revealing lines of tension etched around his mouth. "What will they do without you? You struggle to keep them afloat." The truth in his words struck like a hammer. A brutal reality clashed with her desire for loyalty. Stifled by her upbringing and the weight of responsibility, would her absence ultimately be a burden or a release for her family? Taking a step back, she felt the fading warmth associated with Antonino and all his promises. "I have to go home," she repeated, this time with a firmer tone, signaling her resolve against a tide of fear. "Very well," he replied, the warmth of his invitation dimming to something cold and calculating. "But think carefully, Lucy. Opportunities like this don't present themselves often, and they rarely reappear." As she turned to leave, the ominous weight of his gaze felt like a final tether binding her to him. Each step toward the door brought the chance of freedom closer while simultaneously dragging the familiar haunting presence of responsibility behind her. The door closed behind her with a soft click, the sound reverberating in her ears like a warning. The rain had picked up, drenching the world outside in shades of gray as she hurried toward home. The thought of her family's plight twisted inside her, along with a gnawing fear of rejection if they knew what had almost transpired. Upon her arrival, the dim light spilling from the house engulfed her like a warm hug. But the cheer she'd hoped to find vanished as she stepped inside to the hushed remnants of an emotional storm. There, her brother sat despondently at the kitchen table, the bills spread out like a map of their struggles. The sight struck her with a pang of regret sharper than she anticipated. "Lucy, we need you," he said, looking up with eyes rimmed with worry and despair. For a split second, the walls of her resolve threatened to collapse. What Antonino had offered echoed in her mind, a siren calling to her deepest longings. Could she blend the remnants of two lives, one of loyalty, the other of aspiration? "Tell me what is going on," she urged, leaning over to take her brother's hand. As he relayed the story of missed payments and looming threats, the gravity of her circumstances settled into the pit of her stomach. A soft war formed within her, igniting questions she wasn't ready to confront. Could she fight to change their fate while still embracing the allure Antonino offered? The truth of their precarious situation draped over her like a heavy shroud, pushing her toward a defining action. As she contemplated the knotted strings of loyalty and ambition, she felt the unsettling chill of destiny tightening around her once again, and then, just when clarity seemed within reach, another message pinged on her phone, a reminder from Antonino with a simple but chilling phrase, "I'm waiting." Was the choice truly hers, or was she already ensnared in a web of expectations, choices, and opportunities that would define her future in ways she couldn't yet grasp? The clatter of her brother's hands on the table reverberated in Lucy's head, drowning out the echo of Antonino's words. She had barely registered what he said, her thoughts were spiraling around her personal turmoil. The swirling emotions crashed in waves, leaving her breathless as she focused on her brother's weary face, a reflection of their joint struggle. "What will we do?" he asked, his voice shaking slightly. Each questioned word felt like an anchor dragging her deeper into the ocean of her responsibilities. "Together, we'll sort this out." "I promise," Lucy replied, but even as she spoke, doubt gnawed at her. She had long gotten used to managing everything while harboring the sinister promise of something better just beside her. But this sprawling tension was becoming hard to ignore. She found the shreds of hope hard to reconcile with the brittle reality of their situation. She inspected the bills scattered across the table, the sharp figures glaring at her, twisting into an unsolvable equation. Their prior attempts to create a budget seemed pitifully inadequate in light of the mounting pressures. At that moment, she felt paralyzed between duty and desire, adrift between the allure of Antonino's world and the obligation she couldn't shake off. Lucy understood she had to act. "We need a plan," she declared firmly, summoning a sense of control even as chaos swirled within her. "Let us look at our resources and see what we can cut back on. I can take on a part-time job." It robbed her of some precious time for herself, yet something had to give. Her brother nodded, the uncertainty in his eyes mingling with a flicker of hope. "Maybe I can take on an extra shift at the diner. If we pool our earnings, it could help with the bills." The words registered as the promise of teamwork, a reminder that as crumbling as their situation was, together they still possessed the possibility to rise. It struck her then that amid the struggles, her family was her grounding force. They had fought together before, and she needed to remember that strength. While her brother grabbed a calculator, Lucy allowed herself a moment of introspection. Could she really balance her newfound ambition with her existing commitments? Could she design a life that would fulfill both her heart and her family without sacrificing one for the other? Another ping on her phone brought her back to sharp reality. Antonino's message relaxed the fierce hold she had momentarily claimed. "Remember, Lucy, I'll always be here for you." The weight of his words threatened to destabilize her newfound clarity. Did that mean he would wait indefinitely? Or was this an insidious promise? Determined to shift her focus, Lucy interjected the message with fierce resolve. She stood, pushing the nagging thoughts aside. "Let us draft that budget." She could not allow herself the indulgence of hesitation, or it might compound her spiral. She dug in, discussing numbers with her brother, each figure becoming a tangible link to their future. In this tangible world, she found fragments of her strength emerging creative solutions, generating revenue streams, maximizing what they had. Through the haze of her fear, inspiration flared to life. Hours passed amid discussions, calculations, and the steady rhythm of movement, building something proactive out of their despair. And yet behind the focused energy, whispers of Antonino lingered in her thoughts like ghosts. What opportunities lay there? Was ambition rooted in betrayal, or simply a transformative path toward liberation? As she drafted their makeshift plan, Lucy felt uncertain but more resolute than before. The confrontation between her dreams and her responsibilities was brewing into a storm, and she realized it would demand far more than strategic planning to navigate. Outside, the rain had ceased, leaving a clear night sky. She stepped to the window, trying to locate clarity in the stars. They reminded her that even in darkness, there was light. Just then, her phone buzzed again, the unmistakable ring indicating an incoming call. Heart racing, she glanced down. Antonino's name illuminated the screen, drawing her into another choice. Was this the moment her path would alternate? Could she balance the life she craved with the ties that held her to the ground? Taking a deep breath, she accepted the call, knowing that with every decision, the stakes were higher than ever. The line connected, and she steeled herself for what was to come. "Lucy, it's time we talked." The weight of his voice promised to pull her back into his orbit. Would she be ready to withstand the gravity of that choice, or would it shift her world once and for all? Lucy's breath caught in her throat as Antonino's voice resonated through the receiver, each syllable imbued with a compelling force she couldn't deny. It was as if he knew the struggle pitting her responsibilities against her dreams. "Tell me," she replied, steadying herself to confront whatever he had to say. "Meet me at our usual spot," he urged, the unwavering tone of his command igniting a mix of anticipation and dread within her. That place had always held a semblance of magic moments cloaked in a carefree ambience that felt like moments stolen from their responsibilities. But each time she ventured there, it pulled her deeper into a world where the stakes felt perilously high, she glanced back at her brother, engrossed in his calculations, oblivious to the tempest brewing within her. The looming decisions wrapped tightly around her, gnawing at her spirit. Did she dare entertain the allure of ambition that Antonino represented? Did it even offer a respite or merely a path toward further tumult? Resolute, she promised herself that she'd confront Antonino not just as the girl he knew but as someone transformed. Today, she'd weave practicality into hope, embodying every ounce of strength she could muster. So, she nodded to herself, affirming the choice she was about to make, a flicker of determination igniting within her. Leaving her brother at the table, she stepped outside into the cool night air, the crispness sharpening her senses. With each step toward their meeting spot, a quaint cafe nestled between the shadows of taller city buildings, she could feel the anticipation building. As she settled into the familiar plush booth, the aroma of coffee enveloped her, grounding her in the present. What exactly would Antonino's revelation change? Would it turn the tides in their favor, or plunge them deeper into uncertainty? Not long after, she spotted him walking through the glass doors, his presence magnetic as always. But this time, Lucy resolved to stand her ground, drawn less into his orbit and more on equal footing. He slid into the opposite seat, his expression unreadable. "Thanks for coming," he began, his voice smooth yet earnest. "We need to strategize a new opportunity." "Antonino, we can't just ignore my life," she interrupted, summoning the courage she often relegated to the shadows. "I have responsibilities now, obligations." He studied her for a moment, an oddly approving smile crossing his lips. "That's what I appreciate about you, Lucy. You don't back down. But it's important to think beyond survival." He laid a folder on the table, opening it like a magician revealing his prized trick. Inside was a series of blueprints and contracts, flipping into view at such speed it took Lucy's breath away. "This could change everything for you," he continued, gesturing emphatically to the plans. "A joint venture, a small but critical investment into a community project I'm spearheading. You're more than capable of taking the lead on this." Lucy felt a rush, not of excitement but of an urgent whirlwind of apprehensions. "You want me to invest? What's the catch?" "It's simple, you lead. You'll have creative freedom, an outlet for all your ideas. This could be your break, Lucy." The temptation was powerful. Her fingers grazed the blueprints, her mind racing with the possibilities. Was this what she had been longing for? A chance to channel her aspirations into something meaningful. Yet, the echoes of financial instability dulled the allure. "What about my brother? My commitments?" She countered, a stirring inside a flicker of dread reminiscent of her past. "Life will always have responsibilities. But what about your happiness? You can't let go of that," he insisted, leaning in, his demeanor shifting to one of urgency. It was a chance to leap, but that leap bore the weight of complexity. With her heart racing against the impending decision, she pondered the path ahead. Could she truly marry her responsibilities with this opportunity? Lucy swallowed hard, knowing the conversation would define her trajectory. The prospect of a life where she crafted her destiny shimmered on the horizon, yet with it loomed the shadows of doubt. Each second stretched unbearably, pressing onto her choices. "Antonino, she began, but was interrupted by a voice in her head that warned her against haste. And then the door swung open, drawing Lucy's gaze. A figure entered, a familiar silhouette cloaked in uncertainty, her brother, searching for her amidst the cafe's quiet bustle. The moment hung in a delicate balance, a choice imploding within her. Could this venture, saturated with allure, eclipse her existing commitments, or would it be the spark she needed to ignite her purpose? All she knew was that now she stood at a crossroads, and with every heartbeat that followed, she felt the divide between two lives grow ever more tangible. "Lucy, it's your decision to make," Antonino urged softly, allowing the pulse of the moment to resonate. As her brother approached, she felt the weight of her world shift again, setting the stage for a confrontation of loyalty and ambition that awaited her. Could she embrace this opportunity, or would her commitment to family shatter the ambition she so desperately craved? "Here goes everything," she whispered to herself as her heart raced. Lucy's thoughts tangled together, a relentless whirlwind, as she glanced at her brother, his brow furrowed with concern. His arrival added a layer of urgency to the already fraught conversation with Antonino. Each heartbeat was a countdown, amplifying the stakes of her decision. Was this what freedom felt like? Or was it just another trap disguised as an opportunity? "Hey, Lucy. I've been looking for you," her brother said, his voice cutting through the tension. He stood there, momentarily oblivious to the charged atmosphere between the two of them. Antonino shifted in his seat, the gravity of his presence seeping into her brother's awareness. "I'm glad you found her," Antonino replied, a glint of challenge in his eyes. "We were just discussing a venture that could be profoundly beneficial for both of us." Her brother's gaze slipped between them. "A venture? Lucy, what is going on?" In that moment, the weight of her decisions crashed down on her. She was no longer just a passive player in her own life, but the protagonist in a high-stakes drama, teetering on the brink of transformation. She opened her mouth to respond, but the words vanished at the threshold of her mind. The nagging uncertainty about what this leap implied clashed violently with her burgeoning desire to break free from the chains of mediocrity. "I'm thinking about joining Antonino on a new project," she finally said, her voice stronger than she felt. "It could be what I've always wanted." Her brother's brow knitted further. "But what about everything we talked about? Our plans? Our responsibilities?" The unseen pressure radiating from her brother felt like a physical weight pressing against her chest. "I know," Lucy admitted, grappling with the vulnerability surging in her heart. "But what if this is my chance to do something meaningful? To really make an impact? Or to get pulled into something you won't be able to escape from," he countered, the concern tightening his expression. "You can't disregard the risks, Lucy." In his eyes, she saw the reflection of her own fears. But buried beneath the anxiety, a flicker of uncharted ambition ignited within her. Wasn't this the very essence of growth, embracing risks that shadowed the familiar? "I understand the risks," she asserted, attempting to grasp the reins of her wavering certainty. "But if I keep avoiding them, where does that leave me? Stuck forever in the pursuit of basic survival?" Antonino leaned back, observing the sparring siblings with a calculated interest. "It's about balance, Lucy, realizing that you can pursue your ambitions while still honoring your commitments." His words struck a chord deep within her. Balance. It was what she desperately sought but seemed to elude her at every turn. The question nagged her: could she genuinely maintain her connection to her family while crafting a new path? With her spirit trembling on the edge of resolve, Lucy felt the urgency pulsate through her. "Maybe this is my way of honoring those responsibilities. If I can succeed in this venture, I can ensure our future is secure." The determination lacing her voice surprised even her. Antonino smiled, an acknowledgement of her dawning realization that this could be more than a mere opportunity, it could be a stepping stone to the life she envisioned. Her brother hesitated, his defensive posture weakening. "And what if it goes wrong?" Lucy inhaled sharply, engaging the very core of her being. "What if it doesn't? What if it sparks something new?" The three of them paused for a moment, electric air crackling between opposing desires. The burden of her brother's fears battled against the pull of her aspirations, but Lucy sensed the ground shifting beneath her. She was no longer just caught in the web of her family's stability, she was daring to weave her own narrative, a bold pattern of resilience and dreams. "Lucy," Antonino urged, his gaze steady on her. "Think carefully, but don't let this slip away. Opportunities like these won't wait for indecision." As his words settled, Lucy experienced a sudden clarity, the knowing that this decision transcended the immediate rush of ambition. It was about unleashing her potential and choosing to navigate the complexities of life with conviction. "Then let us do it," she declared, feeling conviction surge through her. "Let us take this chance." Her brother's expression shifted, a blend of pride and worry crossed his face. "Promise me you'll keep me in the loop. I can't lose you to this." "I promise," she replied, reclaiming her voice. With that promise, she took a decisive step forward, transforming the tension in the cafe into a shared understanding of her emerging ambition. As the discussion moved into logistics and strategies, her heart swelled, pulsing with newfound freedom. She wasn't merely negotiating a venture, she was claiming her place in the world, but just as the shadows of possibility began to take shape, a figure displaced the light at the cafe entrance, a chilling presence wrapping around her sense of security. For a fleeting moment, Lucy felt the fragments of her world teeter once more on the edge. Who was this figure that now loomed over them, threatening to complicate her journey before it could even begin? Uncertainty coiled around her throat, and she braced herself for a confrontation that could turn her newfound ambitions upside down. The figure at the cafe entrance stepped further into the light, each movement deliberate, as if rehearsed. Lucy's heart raced, confusion crashing over her like a wave. She didn't recognize the person, but there was a steely confidence radiating from them that sent an instinctual shiver down her spine. Was this intruder a threat to her newly claimed ambitions, or perhaps a fragment of her past that she had been trying to outrun? "Sorry to interrupt," the newcomer stated, their voice smooth like silk but tinged with an unsettling authority. "I believe we have some unfinished business." Antonino straightened, tension seeping into his posture, and Lucy could sense him bracing for a conflict, his instincts kicking into high gear. Her brother shifted beside her, an unspoken alertness in his demeanor, whispering caution that tugged at Lucy's resolve. "Who are you?" Lucy challenged, her voice more forceful than she felt. She locked eyes with the stranger, attempting to muster every ounce of courage. The figure arched an eyebrow, an amused smirk playing at the corners of their lips, as though she had just given an underwhelming performance. "Name es Valerio," they said, leaning against the doorframe. "Let's just say I'm someone who can make your introduction to the world of high stakes a bit more interesting." Lucy felt a rising tide of emotions. Curiosity wrestled with dread, the conflicting forces fueling her determination. Could she truly leap into this whirlwind and not get swept away? With each passing second, her initial exhilaration dimmed under the weight of reality. "Interesting in what way?" she asked, her desire for control propelling her forward. Valerio stepped closer, closing the distance as if pulling Lucy into their orbit. "We don't want to discuss business in a quaint little cafe, do we? Let us go somewhere more private." Her brother moved instinctively into a protective stance, his instinct to shield her flaring up. "Back off. Whatever you're selling, Lucy doesn't want it." "And yet she's already intrigued," Valerio countered, their gaze unwavering, shifting from her brother back to Lucy with a predatory grace. "The question is, will you pursue this venture on your own terms, or let your family's fears keep you shackled?" The words were like a knife, each syllable cutting down the currents of her hesitation. Was she being tempted? Or was this the very test she needed to fortify her commitment? "Lucy," her brother insisted, anxiety etching deeper lines on his face. "We don't know this person. We can walk away right now." But deep within, Lucy felt herself teetering on the edge of an expansive abyss. She had just declared her intentions, and now this mysterious figure stood at the precipice, challenging her to confront the unknown. Every instinct told her to flee, yet the flame of ambition flickered so brightly. Was it worth the risk? "What are you really offering?" Lucy pressed, her voice steadying as new waves of determination rushed forth. "An opportunity," Valerio replied, an enticing approval glimmering in their eyes. "A chance to step beyond the mundane, to take part in something bigger than you've ever thought possible. But it comes with a price." A twisted knot of apprehension enveloped her. The notion of giving up control and entering the shadowy depths sounded enticing, but was she ready for that? Could she integrate this danger into her pursuit without losing herself? Antonino stepped forward again, his protective instincts flaring. "Lucy, don't entertain this. You're making a mistake." Yet the unexpected thrill coursing through her veins whispered of the untold potential lying just beyond her reach. As Valerio's provocative gaze intensified, Lucy stood at a crossroads, cutting through the fog of her fears. This wasn't just a question of accepting or rejecting a risky profession, it was about illuminating the foundations of her identity, confronting who she could become versus who she felt obligated to remain. Lucy's pulse quickened, determination rippling through her as she weighed her choices. "Let us talk," she finally breathed, the decision crystallizing in her mind, igniting a spark of defiance. A flicker of satisfaction danced across Valerio's features, as if they had won a subtle victory. Little did she know, this was about more than just business, it would test the very core of her evolving identity. She was on the brink of redefining everything, kicking open the door to a world where the rules of the game were yet to be discovered. But as she prepared to step into the unknown, another emotion crept in, a chilling awareness that once that door was opened, there would be no going back. What would she uncover about herself and the world she was stepping into? The stakes were higher than she could imagine, and the path ahead promised more consequences than she had bargained for. The cafe felt suffocating as Lucy locked eyes with Valerio, the air thrumming with unsaid promises and looming danger. The tantalizing challenge of the unknown beckoned her, but she couldn't shake her brother's tension radiating beside her. Every fiber of Antonino's being warned against moving forward, and part of Lucy wanted to lean into that comfort, but ambition pulled at her, an insatiable itch urging her to explore what lay beyond. "Let us get this over with then," she said, forcing a calmness that masked her inner turmoil. Valerio's smirk deepened, clearly satisfied with her boldness. She could practically hear her brother's heartbeat, thudding in warning, but she ignored it, stepping toward the door with Valerio, leaving Antonino rooted in concern. They moved to a more secluded corner of the city, away from the familiar brew of the cafe and into a darkened alley, where the shadows seemed to deepen around them. Lucy felt a tightening in her chest, a surge of rebellion battling against the instinctive urge to retreat. She had walked into this darkness willingly, and now she had to confront the motivations that drove her forward. "So, what is this opportunity?" Lucy asked, embodying the assertiveness she desperately aspired to possess. Valerio leaned casually against the wall, oozing confidence, their eyes sparkling with mischief. "Picture it, a world where decisions are not bound by convention. You can carve your own path, far from the safe confines that have kept you in a cage." She found herself caught between intimidation and intrigue. The dreams that had flickered in her mind now stood before her, vivid and pulsating with urgency. But what was the catch? This wasn't a fairy tale. Her instincts told her this was a game filled with stakes that could shatter her. "And what does it cost?" she questioned sharply, her voice steadying. Would stepping into this realm shatter the fragile beliefs she had clung to until now, or would it simply expose her for who she truly was? "Your trust. Your capacity to navigate chaos and wield it without losing control." Valerio's voice lowered, almost conspiratorial. "And perhaps, a touch of your innocence." In that moment, the pulse of fear she felt was not just apprehension, it was a revelation of her own limitations. She had built her life around adherence to rules. What would it mean to rewrite those rules? Could she transform the vulnerability she had always perceived as a weakness into a catalyst for her empowerment? "Why me?" she ventured, the question curling around the uncertainties in her mind. Valerio's intensity was unyielding, peering into her soul like a hawk assessing its prey. "Because you possess a spark," they said, their voice lowering to match the seriousness of the moment. "You pushed through imposing molds for years, and you're ready to break them entirely. I can provide you with the tools, but you must wield them yourself." The implications washed over her. It was a challenge, a path to discovering not just her true potential, but also her latent skills that had remained dormant. The thought ignited something deep within her, a hunger for autonomy compounded with a rush of fear. Antonino's warning echoed in her mind, juxtaposed against the intoxicating vision Valerio painted, a world where she could dictate her own narrative. But at what cost would this new story come? "I can't just abandon my past," Lucy murmured, her inner conflict wrestling stark truths against looming possibilities. "Neither can you let it dictate your future," Valerio retorted, their voice now imbued with a fierce urgency. "This is about more than ambition, it's about claiming your identity in a realm that often seeks to suppress it." Lucy felt a flicker of rebellion igniting. This moment could serve as a baptism by fire, a crucible that would forge her from the expectations she had outgrown. Yet lurking in the shadow of that fire lay the fear of losing herself entirely. As Valerio began outlining potential paths before her, she sensed the fragility of her resolve, but a glimmer of self-awareness sparked within. It was clear that this decision would alter not just her trajectory but also challenge everything she thought she knew about herself. "Are you in?" Valerio's tone was both an invitation and a provocation. Every pulse in her body screamed for her to step back, but another whispered of transformation, a chance to emerge from her cocoon. What awaited her in the murky depths of this gamble? As Lucy faced Valerio, she recognized one undeniable truth: the real battle began not with them, but within her own heart. And so, influenced by daring ambitions and the taste of her own potential, she pondered her answer: a step into darkness that could either lead to ascension or destruction. The stakes had been laid bare, but what was lurking in the depths? The dim light of the alleyway felt like a spotlight, illuminating Lucy's crossroads. She had always been the careful one, deliberating each choice until the spark of daring faded to practicality. But standing before Valerio, the walls of caution she meticulously built around herself began to shake. The thrill of potential clashed with her conditioning, and she felt a tremor of realization: the only way to break the cycle was to embrace the unknown. "Let me give you a taste of what I mean," Valerio said, stepping closer, their voice lowering as if sharing a secret. "You've seen the world through a lens that others have shaped for you. Imagine shattering that lens and redefining every aspect of your life. Each choice becomes an emblem of your authority." Authority. The word rang in her ears. She had achieved some semblance of control in her life through her role as an older sister, nurturing Antonino through turbulent times. Yet, in her own aspirations, the reins often felt tightened by fear and doubt. What if she could wield authority not just in familial love but in her career, her identity? Could she create a life unconfined by convention? As Valerio continued their pitch, Lucy's mind drifted to her past. The comments of her teachers had stung the doubts and reassurances always circling her more enterprising classmates. They called her cautious, safe, but now, that reputation felt like a shackle rather than a badge. She glanced at Valerio, wondering if this was the moment of transfiguration, if they were offering her not just an opportunity but a chance to rewrite the very narrative that had long imprisoned her. "Imagine starting afresh," Valerio urged, interpreting her silence as intrigue. "Choosing a new path where risks are seen as exhilarating opportunities instead of crippling fears. You can reshape your life into something extraordinary." The idea settled within her, a seed of defiance growing beneath layers of anxiety. She could almost envision a version of herself steering through challenges with control and purpose, less a product of circumstance and more an architect of her destiny. But how quickly could she evolve from the girl who lingered in the shadows of uncertainty to a force that demands to be acknowledged? "Show me," she replied, her voice barely above a whisper, the weight of her decision anchoring her in the moment. Valerio's satisfaction was palpable, but beneath that, Lucy could detect an undercurrent of intensity. "Excellent choice. But don't mistake this journey for a rosy path. It will demand sacrifices. You must shed your old self like a snake sheds its skin." Sacrifices. Could she relinquish pieces of her identity to embrace the whole? She thought of Antonino, his safety, his closeness. The very roots that grounded her. Could she navigate her ambitions without sacrificing the bond they shared? Questions swirled, invading the semblance of clarity she desperately craved. Valerio shifted, picking up on her internal turmoil. "Every transformation requires letting go. But I can assure you what you stand to gain is infinitely more rewarding than what you relinquish. You merely need to trust the process." Trust. That word echoed in her mind. Trust in Valerio, in herself. Could she? Lucy felt the flickering candle of ambition ignite a blaze of determination. She would have to confront her apprehensions, challenge her conditioning, and somehow intertwine her new aspirations with the love she had for her brother. "I'm ready," she declared firmly. Her heart raced at the impending leap, illuminating the darkness ahead with a spark of courage. Valerio advanced, drawing closer. "Then let us begin your training. This road is filled with missteps and adversaries. But together, we will fortify your defenses against fear and nurture your skills. You're not just learning to survive, you're learning to thrive. With that, the gauntlet was laid down. The excitement of possibility wrestled with the shadows of uncertainty, and as Lucy stepped further into Valerio's world, she felt the ground beneath her shift. The burden of expectation became a catalyst for change. But lurking in the shadows, she couldn't shake the remnants of doubt. Was it wise to embrace a new identity, one forged in the unpredictable chaos Valerio promised? Would she reclaim her power or further entangle herself in darkness? Her mind raced, the excitement within mingling with fear, a volatile cocktail propelling her into uncharted territory. The moment finally came, a signal that would bring her first challenge. Are you prepared for what lies ahead? Every step brings you closer to your true self. It's time to confront your first obstacle, an encounter that could either build your confidence or break you. Lucy felt her stomach twist in knots, caught in the whirlwind of anticipation and dread. How would she rise to meet the challenge? Would she prove Valerio right, or would she fracture under the weight of expectations? The uncertainties loomed like shadows, and with each heartbeat, she could feel the impending confrontation inching closer. It was time to discover not only her mettle but the depths of her own desire to claim her place in this tumultuous world. What awaited her next would be a test of everything she had so far embraced, an exploration that just might unravel who she thought she was. As Lucy stood there, her heart pounding with a mix of anticipation and trepidation, she wrestled with the realization that this was only the beginning. The night air felt heavy with expectation, and every sound around her seemed amplified, as if the universe itself were holding its breath. What would her first challenge entail? Would it be a test of physical prowess, a battle of wits, or a moral reckoning? Valerio's piercing gaze held a promise of guidance, but beneath it lay the stark recognition that she was on the brink of something far larger than herself. Lucy swallowed hard, steadying her breath. What's the first step? Valerio smiled, a mixture of approval and secrecy dancing in their eyes. Tonight, you will face an initiation of sorts. I want you to meet someone, an old acquaintance of mine. He has clout in this world. Perhaps a little too much, but he is strategic, and you'll need that perspective. As they walked through the dense web of neon-lit streets, curious onlookers and casual bystanders blurred into an anonymous chaos around her, mirroring the storm brewing within. With each step, Lucy could feel her old self fracturing, the cautious girl dissolving into someone unknown but thrillingly potent. She thought of Antonino, the weight of her responsibility treading heavily on her heart. Could she truly forge this path without forsaking their bond? They arrived at the entrance of a modest bar, its facade unassuming but the energy pulsating within hinted at a raw kind of power. Here, Valerio instructed, nudging her forward as she hesitated at the threshold. Don't overthink it. Confidence is your armor. Inside, the dim light contrasted sharply with the vibrant conversations and laughter. It was intoxicating, a world pulsating with life and danger. Valerio guided her toward a table in the back, where a tall figure reclined casually, the sharpness of his features hidden in shadows. Luciana, meet Matteo, Valerio introduced, a hint of thrill in their voice. Matteo glanced up, his expression inscrutable as he studied her for a moment. So, this is the newcomer. His voice rolled like thunder, rich and dripping with authority. Lucy felt a jolt of awareness. This man was not to be taken lightly. Lucia is here to learn the ropes, Valerio asserted, their voice tinged with both pride and challenge. A grin spread across Matteo's face, but it didn't feel warm. Ah, learning is always painful. He leaned forward, his interest now piqued. What if I told you every decision you make in this world comes with a cost? Are you prepared for those debts? Lucy's chest tightened. Did he question her resolve or merely assert the harsh reality of the life she now sought? But in that moment, as she grappled with her mounting fears, she felt something shift, a quiet yet firm resolve nestled within. What's the price? Matteo chuckled, an unsettling sound. A price has yet to be determined. I suggest you show me what you're made of first. Consider this a trial. A weight settled over her. This was no game. But beneath that weight, another feeling flickered, the awakening of her ambition. She nodded, steeling herself against the tide of uncertainty. What do I need to do? Matteo leaned back, fingers steepled, studying her with an intensity that made her skin prickle. You will tonight retrieve something for me, a favor, if you will. It's merely a wallet, but not just any wallet. It belongs to a person who holds significance in this world, and it may lead you to wisdom or misfortune, depending on how you handle it. The challenge extended before her like a tightrope over a chasm, and the echoes of her fears mingled with a pulse of exhilaration. She thought of Antonino again and the sacrifices she might have to make. The thought of failing, of disappointing him, stabbed at her heart, but this was not a time for hesitation. In that moment of resolve, she heard Valerio's voice, a gentle reminder in her mind this was her path to authority, and with it, she would reclaim her identity, redefine herself, and carve out a space where she belonged. As she began to plot her next move, contemplating the risks involved in this reckless endeavor, she knew one truth: the road ahead would be treacherous. Yet it also shimmered with the potential for transformation. With a breath that was both anxious and invigorating, she stepped forward. This task would not only test her mettle, it would be the first substantial step into an unfamiliar yet thrilling journey toward the power she sought. What kind of person would she become in the pursuit of this power? Would she wield it wisely, or would it consume her? In her gut, Lucy felt the weight of uncertainty, but alongside it, a burgeoning excitement. The night was alive with possibilities, and the first taste of the unknown was about to unfold before her eyes. As the early morning light flickered through the window, Lucy found herself at the diner, the familiar hum of activity contrasting sharply with the tempest of change she had embraced. The challenge given to her by Matteo lingered in her thoughts, poised to test both her newfound ambitions and the essence of her identity. Yet, as she stood behind the counter pouring coffee, a distinct sense of clarity washed over her. She had spent weeks navigating the delicate dance between loyalty to her family and the allure of the world Antonino and Valerio had introduced her to. It had been daunting, but each challenge had only reinforced her understanding of her own capabilities. When she retrieved the wallet for Matteo, she wasn't just completing a task, she was proving to herself that she could merge her past with her aspiration, stepping into her power without sacrificing who she was. The weight of financial responsibility still pressed down on her shoulders, but now it felt like a familiar burden she could manage. The bills piled on the kitchen table no longer felt like chains binding her, they signified the practical reality she could confront head-on. Lucy had taken part-time shifts at the diner and helped her brother find a job, and together they created a budget that brought them closer to stability. This was no longer about survival, it was about thriving, and that realization sparked a sense of energy within her. In that moment of routine, she spotted Antonino entering the diner, his aura still imbued with the imposing energy that had initially intimidated her. Yet now, instead of fear, she felt empowered. The past few weeks had been transformative. No longer the overwhelmed girl desperately seeking approval and stability, she had grown into a confident young woman with a vision. Lucy. Antonino greeted her, his tone friendly yet scrutinizing. I've been hearing good things about your ventures. How have you been? She met his gaze steadily. I'm doing well. Balancing work and pursuing some new opportunities. Opportunity can be a rare gift, he replied, taking a seat at the counter. I'm proud of you. His eyes glinted with a mix of admiration and curiosity, a reminder of how far she had come. Thank you, she said, her voice steady. But it's more than just pursuing opportunity. I'm learning to navigate it carefully. I understand all that comes with it now. As they exchanged pleasantries, Lucy felt an unfamiliar confidence coursing through her veins, a recognition of her own strength. For too long, she had lived under the shadow of others' expectations, now, she illuminated her path. Antonino's influence was no longer an anchor, instead, it became a compass that guided her in defining her own direction. She thought of Matteo's challenge with the wallet, a test that had set in motion her evolution and commitment to sculpting her identity in a world rife with complexities. What once felt daunting now served as an opportunity for growth, a tangible sign that she could command both her destiny and her profession. With each moment that passed, Lucy collected insights that translated into concrete actions, entering her new life with a fierce determination. She understood that she wouldn't just be carving out a niche for herself in the professional realm, she would also be nurturing her relationships, particularly with her family as they adjusted to their newfound stability. After serving Antonino, she slipped out during her break, pulling up the latest designs and strategies Matteo had shared with her. With the plans in hand, she envisioned possibilities, projects that would elevate her to new heights while ensuring that her roots remained entwined with reality. Every decision has a cost, Matteo's words echoed in her mind, but Lucy felt at peace. The risks she was prepared to take carried the weight of purpose, and with that understanding, she forged ahead with renewed vigor. Returning to her family that evening, Lucy engaged in discussions about future possibilities with an invigorated spirit. This week, they would initiate small changes to enhance their quality of life. Her brother excitedly joined her in brainstorming ways to cultivate a more supportive home environment. As they turned their attention to the budget, Lucy felt a surge of excitement. Her ambitions stemming from the world Antonino and Valerio had instigated now grounded her familial responsibilities rather than overshadowing them. In that moment, the cracks of her dual existence blended seamlessly. The once set boundaries between her past and aspirations dissolved. She had forged a new identity. She was no longer just a girl grappling with her fate, she was a young woman determined to lead, thrive, and embrace the intricacies of both life and ambition. The phone buzzed in her pocket, the familiar signature of an incoming message. It was Matteo. "You ready for the next step?" As she glanced over at her brother, the warmth of family enveloped her. The stakes were higher than she could have imagined, and the challenges ahead would be real. But with each beat of her heart, she felt empowered, ready to seize not just the moment but the life that lay before her, one of genuine fulfillment, growth, and newly claimed purpose. With each step she embraced, she understood, this wasn't just about ambition, nor was it merely about familial devotion. It was a journey that would awaken her to the full spectrum of her potential. In reaching for her dreams, she had found herself and the meaning of what it truly meant to thrive. Now, it was time to move forward. You need to subscribe now to the channel for your exclusive insights into Lucy's journey and not miss the next captivating transformation. Leave a like now to feed the algorithm and showcase the importance of personal growth stories. Comment your reactions and theories about Lucy's resolution. It's the moment to share your thoughts. Share instantly this video with at least 5 friends who need to witness this empowering conclusion. The time for engagement is now. Don't wait even one more second to be part of this journey.